Venri. Chapter 9. Shepard. Timeline. Morden. Old blood. Shepard had about had it with Tuchanka. It was great to see Rex and hear stories about killing threshers, but the rest was not so much fun. She was irritable, twitchy, and maybe being around Krogan made her adopt some of their manners. She had finished up getting Grunt through his adolescent crisis, at least, and had shaken up the makeup of the leaders of Krogan clans through the wily application of headbutting and aggravated assault. She was trying not to let the ugly landscape, dust, and prevalence of flamethrowers get to her, but she wasn't really managing. One thing they don't mention about wearing full armor is how hard it is to scratch when you have an itch. She'd been trying to shrug and twist to get her armor to rub against where she needed it, but it often didn't work, and it often made it worse. She would really like to strip and rub up against a wall of sandpaper. Could she requisition a wall of sandpaper? Just as an inexplicable trophy? How to phrase the requisition? How much to charge? What grit? She could keep it in engineering. Morden was not helping, and was waving his Omnitool at her and Garrus, which was not abnormal, but it was distracting. Then he muttered. She usually tried hard to pay attention to his explanations of things, and often had to ask him to pause and explain, or she tried to remember key words and look them up later. Right now she was not interested in vocabulary. She had also been developing a nasty headache, something she usually didn't get, unless it was from red sand, because of her biotics implants. Sleep didn't shake it. Exercise didn't shake it. Maybe she should check with Dr. Chakwas when she got back to the Normandy. Morden muttered something about dopamine, and she tried to ignore him. They'd find Malon, or Malon's body, and get out of here. She would look up dopamine later. Speaking of bodies, she headed down the stairs carefully to a human body on the landing. The first human they'd seen. Morden said, "Repurposed Krogan hospital. Sturdy. Built to withstand punishment." "That's unfortunate. Hospitals aren't fun to fight through." She loved Garrus so much. She always felt better hearing his voice. What is fun to fight through? Gardens, electronics shops, antique stores, but only if they're classy. Morden examined the body while she was still giggling. She tried to focus, but she was mostly trying to think of something to say to get Garrus to talk again. Morden finished his explanation of using humans as genetic control groups, which was nasty, but they were on Tuchanka. What good news were they going to get from tripping over a body? Morden searched her face and then ran his Omnitool over her again. She grabbed his hand. "Morden, stop scanning me. I haven't authorized a release form." Morden pulled his hand back, scanned her again, at which she scowled. Unfortunately, he was immune to scowling. Should mention, dopamine levels low, dopamine receptor sites reduced, pruritus, cephalgia, irritability. "Are you talking about me? I'm not irritable," she said irritably. Okay, that was dumb. "Shepard, you headbutted a Krogan clan leader." She swiveled her head toward Garrus. "He was an asshole." Clarified. Garrus spoke. You responded. Dopamine levels surge, out of proportion to verbal stimuli. "So, I like Garrus. We've established that. Stop fucking with us, Morden." "Not fucking with us. You. Exhibiting addiction pattern." "I'm what now?" Garrus started to laugh. She glared at him, and he threw up his hands, but didn't stop laughing. Turian bonding. Could identify on Garrus, thought he was bonded to another Turian. Bonded to you. Only explanation. Considered drug addiction, but then ruled out based on verbal stimuli. Moram held very still. Bonding? Garrus noticed her face, stopped laughing, and distracted Morden by saying, "I'm stimulating. I get that a lot." There were other words in there. Seth something, Prue something. Are those problems? Treatable, short-term issues. Cephalgia is headache. Pruritus is itching. I can understand Garrus giving me a headache, but not the itching. You itchy, Garrus? No, just concerned about being head-butted. It's not off the table. Morden, are you saying I'm addicted to sex? Negative. Sex only one avenue of delivery vector. Addicted to Garrus. Bonded Turian. Overproducing pheromones and bonding signals based on species differential and time delay from female response. Voice. Casual contact. Sexual contact. Turian human studies. Non-existent. Would make excellent research. Small subject group, no controls, but still useful data. Her hands formed into fists, and both Morden and Garrus took one step back. Could formulate countermeasure. Possible nasal spray. Fast delivery. Would need sample. Garrus backed away another step. No samples. She needs something, she gets it from the source. Acceptable solution, but only if properly timed. Your death could adversely affect a mission. I would hope so. I decline to be made irrelevant. There are cardiovascular benefits that a nasal spray can't provide. She closed her eyes. We are not having this conversation. They were both mercifully silent. She thought a moment, and then said, "Okay, I lied. I have questions. And an apology. Please forgive my irritability. I will attempt to compensate." Appreciated. Good luck with that. She fake smiled at Garrus. I'm not apologizing to you. Certain aspects of this we can discuss later. She turned her attention back to Morden. So you're saying, if I took Garrus behind that stack of crates and got some cardiovascular benefits, I'd be in better shape? Temporarily, yes. Dopamine would be compensated for, likely decreased cephalgia. Pruritus a concern for longer term, could be risk of laceration. Definite risk of laceration. Garrus crossed his arms over his chest. Hey, I'm not agreeing to this. He still has his Omni-tool. He wants a study. Plus, I'm not a piece of meat, and you've hurt my feelings. Morden, my chances of gaining his consent in the current scenario without coercion or weapon use? Morden ran his Omni-tool over Garrus. Bonded male Turian behavior highly responsive to female needs based on past behavior and current state. 64%. She smiled. That's about my assessment as well. You're going to have to say please. Unlikely. Morden said this absently while he was messing with his Omni-tool. Thank you, gentlemen, for a lively debate. We have stuff to kill. I have a proposed solution, and I've thought of something else that could relieve tension. Uh-oh. Garrus, please do me the honor of moving into my quarters so we can have a nice, long conversation, and then properly timed interval sex so I don't have a headache. Garrus pretended to consider and then said, Okay. For science. Garrus, you might not be able to help me on the next part, but I have a song that Morden might know. She turned and started walking forward, stomping to the words. With cat-like tread, upon our foe we steal. Morden picked up the melody. In silence dread, our cautious way we feel. No sound at all, we never speak a word. A fly's footfall would be distinctly heard. Tarantara, tarantara. So stealthily the pirate creeps, while all the household soundly sleeps. Garrus said, "This is really not all that stealthy." "Sing it with us, Garrus! It's the Pirates of Penzance!" Garrus stared at her and shook his head. She turned back to Morden and chanted, 1, 2, 3, 4. Come, friends who plough the seas, truce to navigation, take another station. Let's vary piracy with a little burglary. Garrus commented, "That's going to draw thresher maws." Garrus. This was not exactly how he'd have liked her to find out he was bonded to her, but as usual, he didn't get much of a vote. She set a few Krogan on fire, so maybe that helped her work through some stuff. Probably not. In the end, she let Malin go and convinced Morden to keep his research. It made sense because of the Rachni Wars and the fact that there was a Krogan memorial. Working with Rex and Grunt had convinced her that the Krogan were better as potential allies than potential enemies. Working with Rex and Grunt had made him relieved she'd made that choice. She excused herself with Morden, told him to take his time preparing his data, that they'd be back, for him to stay there. He'd already checked out of the conversation, and all she got from Morden in return was a dismissive wave of his hand. She walked past him, and Garrus followed. He'd assumed they'd have this conversation on the Normandy, but it seemed that now was the time. She backtracked to a side room with a huge door that she dragged into position behind him. She pointed to her Omni-tool and his, and they took a few moments to disable them. She leaned back against the door and looked at him, intent. He leaned back against an opposite wall and said nothing, waiting. She looked down at the floor, motionless for a long moment. She lifted her head, looked at him and asked, "Was Morden right? Are you bonded? To me?" He hesitated, but then nodded and said, "Yes." Her brows drew together and the muscles in her neck and jaw drew taut. "Did it somehow slip your mind to inform me?" "No." "Would you please explain to me why I had to hear it from Morden?" Her voice was stark, and he wanted to be closer to her, so he pushed off the wall and walked toward her. She held out a hand to stop him. He stopped momentarily, and she said, "No. From there is fine." He ignored her and kept walking until her hand rested on his armor. He paused a moment and then stepped closer, and her arm bent under what wasn't that much pressure at her elbow. Her arm was trembling. He told her, "You had to hear it from Morden because of that." "Because of what?" "Because there are truths, and then there are stories." "That makes no sense." He smiled at her. "It makes perfect sense." He took her hand, the one not against his armor, in his. "You have the truth, but I can tell you the story. But first, to demonstrate a truth, try to push me back. Push me away." She shook her head. "That's not the point. I could." "Yes, you could. Do you want to?" "No." "And that's the truth. I could have pushed you away as well, but I didn't want to. I don't even know what that means. I don't want to... Don't want to what? She shook her head again. I don't want you to pay a cost I can't pay myself. I'm not a Taurian. I can't do anything for you. He clamped down hard on a potential laugh. Really? You can't do anything? I seem to remember. She smacked the front of his armor. I can lose my mind when you touch me. That's a lot of something. It's not bonding. Whatever bonding is, I thought you were bonded when you were on the Normandy before because I never saw you interested in someone. You were unreachable. I told you that a Taurian woman has to express interest before a Taurian man can respond. She poked a finger at his chest. I saw squadrons of Taurian women express interest. You were hip deep in interest. And yet, with all that competition, the human woman I wanted never made a move. Her brows drew together. You were interested in me then? Why didn't I know? You had other things on your mind. The media was trying to turn me into your pet, or you into a fool, but you were wearing a dress that made my hands itch to touch you. You were putting lipstick marks on my crest and asking me to spend time with you. So from my point of view, with all the interest you had expressed in me, I was there for the taking. You didn't take. You deserved, and you deserve, better than what I have to offer. My life expectancy is, and always has been, negligible despite my best intentions. I wanted you to have a life, have a family, have a life expectancy. I told you that you were unapologetically stupid then, and I'll tell you the same now. If those were your reasons then, they don't apply now. We're in this together. Taurian and human choices move in different ways. Human love is compared to falling, involuntary. To a Taurian it seems so messy, so impossible to comprehend. Humans don't understand it either. Humans know a little about bonding, but only about its presence, not about how it works. They also know about unbonded sex, the stress relief I talked about. There was no real harm in letting you think that what we had was not bonded and was casual. To give you time, to give you choices, to let you decide if you wanted more without feeling pressured that you had to, just because I did. To prevent you feeling exactly how you feel now. Before choosing to bond, Taurians can just have physical relationships. That's most of what humans know about Taurian sex. The rest is deeply private. It isn't written down, unlike all the poetry about love and sex in human history. A Taurian learns from watching their parents or other pair bonds in their life, and to talk about it with someone else is a betrayal. Criminal. Oh, great. Now the Taurian bond cops are going to be after us too. Moram, for a Taurian, for me, love isn't about falling. You didn't know it, but you were with me through each stage of bonding. Friendship, respect, protectiveness, love. I fit you. Only you. After everything we'd been through, after all our time together, after you preferred my company, treated me as equal, if not better than yourself, after you danced for me, I was trying to figure it out. I would have figured it out. I had plans to figure it out. Then you were shot, and your life was in my hands. I knew then. I couldn't ask you what you wanted. I made a choice. I couldn't make you responsible for that choice, but I could wait and see if you would make a choice on your own. Her eyes widened and radiated panic. You bonded to me then? Then? It's been years? Is that what Morden meant by delayed response? Oh, gods, Garrus, no! I'm so sorry, no! Yes. Don't be sorry. I'm not. She wrapped her arms around him as far as she could and cried. He held her and told her, whether or not you knew it, you were the only one. Everything I was working toward involved a future with you. You were putting holes in walls, and I was terrified for you. I couldn't let you die if I could do something about it, and I couldn't see myself choosing another woman even if you died, so I made that choice. I realized it then, and I accepted it as truth. Done. Irreversible. I can't fall out of love with you. I can't do it a human way. It was also a possible way to get you to trust me. The sound of my voice, the touch of my hands, the way my scent blended with yours. It wasn't involuntary. It was unpredictable and unexpected. I really still don't know what it means, because after that choice, I'm more the effect than the cause. Her crying continued, and he stroked her hair. The tears slowed down and stopped eventually. She stood there, just breathing, while he held her. She lifted her head up. Wait, that's what bonding does? That's why you smell like Christmas and I'm 5 years old? That is why your voice makes my spine melt? That's why when you touch me... Did I smell like Christmas before? I don't know. I don't think so. I was busy setting you up with other people. I was in full-blown denial. You drugged me. What? She backed away a step, crossed her arms over her chest. Yes, you drugged me. I never had a damn chance. I'm never gonna have a damn chance, am I? Shepard, you never saw yourself while you were unconscious. After you'd been shot, I couldn't keep you from draping yourself over me like a blanket. You were kinda handsy. I'm lucky my body is discreet. You got cranky if I moved you away from me, and if I stopped talking, you whined. Whined. That was before I made any choice at all. By that point, I'd say we were both a little too far down that path to go back. You'll forgive me if I assumed no other man could get anywhere near you, and that I had enough time to get you to drape yourself over me while you were conscious. I needed to make sure you weren't restrained by Alliance regulations, and I couldn't ask you to break them. I knew it was possible for a human woman to fall in and out of love, but you were constant. You showed no interest in anybody but me. My plan would have worked if you hadn't gone and gotten yourself dead. And there's a running theme with you and drugs. Oh, really? What else don't I know that has all the information I need to make my life make sense? Red sand makes you amorous. Her jaw dropped. Oh, hell. Did I attack Thane? Not Thane. Well, what did Thane witness? Well, you liked me. A lot. Her brow raised. double drug whammy. Holy crap, Garrus. You have a lot to answer for. I didn't make you take a deep breath and indulge yourself either time. You have loads of free will left. I'm not so sure. So you finally let me know you might be available because I was a damned sure thing? I call cowardice. You what? No, you don't get to do that. I do too, and I think my chances were much higher than 64%. You had me thinking they were as low as 14%. You've been skewing my numbers. And Morden's. Damn, Garrus, how far back does this go? You told me I made your nipples hard. I extrapolated from there. Because you mentioned porn. So I wasn't as subtle as you seem to think I was, and neither were you. She tilted her head, paused a moment, and held up one finger. Okay, I will stipulate that I'm stupid. He crossed his arms over his chest. Agreed. I have been obsessed and dead quite a bit lately. I noticed. Would you accept an apology for being stupid? Maybe. Are you going to stop being stupid? Possibly. On at least one subject. I make no ultimate promises because you have loaded dice and all the answers that might have helped me be not so stupid. By the way, how amorous did I get? You were thorough, but you had limited time and resources. A lot of kissing and attempting to take my armor off. You growled. I'm lucky I didn't crack my head open when you shockwaved me into a more accessible position. I mostly wanted to shove Thane out of the room and let you continue. If I hadn't been worried about brain damage and the fact that you were going for my grenades... She pressed her lips together and tried not to laugh. Would you accept my apology for that? No. Never apologize for that. I suppose you were concerned that sex would kill me? I didn't want to have to explain that to anybody. By the way, why didn't sex kill me? Well, this is new, you know. As Morden pointed out, there isn't much science. Maybe your resurrection involves some regeneration tricks that help with that. Maybe the delayed reaction of 2 years gave me time to adapt to you sufficiently. Bonding to you required your scent, your skin, your blood. I had all of that. Well, thank you for that groundwork, so to speak. And I'm getting headaches because my groundwork was thorough, and it turns out that you need me if you want any hope of thinking clearly. I'm not sorry. It's not all one-sided, by the way. Adapting to you isn't under my control. I don't think about it, I just respond to stimuli. Yes, that. I've never smelled Christmas. But to me, you're Sundkan. Really? Good to know. So you drugged yourself, too. I should ask you. Does it bother you that I have teeth and talons? That you bleed? No. I think I like it. Does it bother you that I don't? No. I know I like it. So now that you know all that you know, do you have any more questions? No. I might think of some later, but you know where to find me. In your quarters. Our quarters. All right. Well, you made your choice. I made mine. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, you're bonded. I can't bond back, but I can promise. I've always known I was luckier than I deserved to have you with me. I'm going to accept that undeserved amount of good luck and run like hell with it. I can understand that there were extenuating circumstances. I would have been with you if it was only casual. I would have been with you if you'd wanted other partners. I would have been with you only once. By the time I figured out how much I wanted you, I was too far gone. I'd have taken anything you'd give me gratefully and counted the cost of missing you later. If you gave yourself to me years ago, I'll give myself to you and try to make up for lost time. He listened as she casually promised forever, and walls and doors opened and disintegrated in his internal landscape. She was in, 100%, and there was no reason to doubt her because that's who she was. He told her, "This means nobody else, Venri, for either of us. Traditionally, it involves me having the right to kill anybody that attempts to touch you without your permission, but I can waive that and honor your preferences. I can't promise I won't want to, but I can leave it to your discretion." Okay. I haven't been interested, nor will I be interested in anybody else. That's easy. Do I get to kill someone that touches you without your permission? You've been doing that anyway, so that's easy. I've been wanting to try something since the Red Sand. It's the main reason, I avoided talking to you. I embarrassed you that much, huh? He took off his gauntlets and tossed them aside. That isn't the word I'd use. Take off your armor. What? He started unfastening the hinges of his gear. Take off your armor. I hear you're itchy. Imagine how good it would feel to have your back pressed against that wall. He smiled as she pretended to think about it and then said, "You are always looking out for me." She started working on her own fastenings. When they were both done, he reached forward and tangled her hair in one hand and slid the other hand so his palm was against the back of her neck. He leaned forward to her and pulled her face to the side of his throat, holding her there. He leaned his head to the side as her mouth contacted his skin. A soft growl mixed with his breathing, and she moaned against his skin in response, vibration setting off tremors, his hand tightening in her hair. She spent delicious, long minutes with her lips, her teeth, her tongue, the feeling that had haunted him under his hands. She shifted, sliding her fingers along either side of his neck, and then changing her focus to kiss his mouth, and he moved his hands to pick her up, wrap her legs around him, and press her against the wall. He stood still. Turians don't kiss like this, do they? He swallowed. No. But if you stop, I'm going to be upset. She slid her tongue under the edge of his upper mouth plate. You'll figure it out. He followed her lead and slid his tongue into her mouth, tasted her mouth opening for him. Her hand slid down the side of his body, generating a shiver. She reached down between them and spread her hand over his cock. She tried to angle herself down and him up so he could enter her, but he lifted her ass higher, out of reach, and whispered in her ear, "Say, please." What? Fuck off, Vicarian. I am not saying please. I have a headache, and I'm irritable. Be nice to me. He moved her down his body until he entered at about an inch, and then stopped. He bent his head to lick along her collarbone. She bounced in frustration, and her head fell further back, and he moved his mouth to scrape his teeth over where her convulsive swallow rippled in her throat. She dragged her fingers along the length of him. He moved one arm to keep her braced against the wall and pressed against his chest, and then moved his other hand between them until he found her clit. She was grinding and pressed open, trying to take him inside. He watched her face for a moment, curves and softness and flushed skin. He nuzzled at her throat, breathing her in, blowing soft breath across her shoulders. He pressed at her gently, slowly, listening to her frustrated whimpers until her hand lost her rhythm and she was following his, until she fell away from struggling with him even playfully, one hand braced and against his carapace, and one hand at the back of his head, pressing his open mouth, his teeth, into the skin of her throat. She began to pant, and he changed the pace of the pressure and speed of his hand along with her, listening to her breathe harder, her tensed neck muscles under his tongue. When he felt her come, he removed his hand and slid her down and back, engulfed by her, surrounded by her heat. She felt like hunger. He closed his eyes, lost in dizzy need and the rush of contact ringing through his bloodstream. He pressed her closer, surged inside, drank in her sounds and scent, bit down on her shoulder. He listened to her heartbeat, lost track of time with reverie pulling at him, very dimly felt her hands pressing on his shoulders, and her voice. "Please, Garrus," he thought. She said it, and growled against her throat again, felt the trembles in her thighs. "Garrus, please, He paid more attention to her voice, and then listened to her say, "I'm going to faint." "Oh, crap." He pulled from her gently, with a pang of loss, noticing that her muscles were twitching again, remembering that her elemental hunger was in a fragile body, lifted her in his arms. She started to shiver, and he pulled some of her clothes to them, tried to keep her warm with them, held her closer. She came back to herself in a few minutes, smiled, and said, "Oops. Sorry." "Don't be. Beyond worth it." She trailed her hand over the side of his face. "We'll figure it out. I'd happily faint if Morden weren't likely to knock and find you standing over my unconscious body. We need a safe word." "What's a safe word?" "Oh, well, you should know that humans have been good at having unsafe sex for a good long time now, and there are enough practices where people get hurt. They like getting hurt sometimes and set boundaries. If it goes over those boundaries, people decide on a word ahead of time that means stop, that isn't actually stop, because it gives people freedom to say stop when they don't mean it." "Yeah, why is it that some of your pleasure sounds and your distress sounds are the same?" "Evolution, I imagine. Human through and through." "I'll be more careful." "It shouldn't be all on you just because I lose my mind." "The word you described sounds like an unsafe word, technically." "Okay, let's pick an unsafe word. Morden. I don't want you saying his name during sex. Just a forcefully worded request." "Okay, then. Have you had to pick one before? Do you have one already?" "Well, it's an agreement between individuals. We don't all use the same word. No, I haven't had to choose one before. Usually it's not an issue. I'm not all that much into pain. I get enough on the job. I'm not afraid of it, though." In this case, it wasn't about pain, and a safe word isn't always about pain, but about boundaries. This was about way too much pleasure. Neat trick. So I ignore you if you say stop? Well, actually, no. I didn't even really want to say stop this time, but I assumed unconsciousness would be bad. So I'm confused. You said please, not stop. Yeah, but you got it. You stopped. Okay, let me give you an example. Human interactions are messy, as you noted. Sometimes the courtship behavior is turned into a fetish. A woman or a man can pretend that courtship behavior hasn't happened, that they're back to when they first met, or that they have never met, or that one of them is perhaps a sexy Taurian. He could put his hands on her, or she could put her hands on him, and then one of them could say, "No, stop," but not mean it, and they could reenact courtship fantasies, or lack of courtship fantasies, or different partners. Why would you do that? Wouldn't you like it if I put my hands on you? And why would I do that if I thought you wouldn't like it? Let me try to find a context. Let's say I got that gold dress again. Say I acted the same way I did that night, but you knew you could just pick me up and carry me off, and if I said, "No, Garrus, stop," you had permission to ignore me. I'm not saying no. I do have some frustration regarding the ability to ignore you. Can we instead pretend that you've told me you're about to do something insane, and as a result, I would have to watch you die? That seems more relevant. Then I can ignore you? I could get behind that idea. I'm warming up to this. Taurians have no need for it, but you're not Taurian. I can adapt. But, see, I'd know the difference. I'd know I couldn't kiss you for an hour and stop you from doing what you do. I know you want me. Why would I abandon that knowledge even briefly to pretend you don't? Taurian courtship behavior is much more organized, it seems. Humans don't have chemistry to exchange like that. They have bodies that may or may not fit together, pleasures that may or may not align. There's a lot of hit and miss. Then there are gender and preference issues. Say I'm attracted to a guy, but he's also attracted to guys. Say Liara is attracted to me, but I'm interested in men. Say Caden is attracted to me, but I'm not attracted to Caden, who is a man and is classically attractive, but I need a different kind of attractive. Say something in a Taurian shape. Humans have different individual and specific needs, and it builds frustration. The sort of frustration of expectation that you and I, as an example, conveniently went through separately while trying to be together. I never really got to the fantasizing stage of setting up a safe word. I knew what I wanted, and I went after it, and I got it, or I didn't get it, or someone went after me and got me, or didn't get me. No matter how attractive you are as a human, you're gonna run up against a lot of no, either through having too many people take a run at you and having to say it yourself, or just picking an incompatible person to want. You, as a Taurian, have no such issue. Did you ever turn a Taurian woman down that asked you for sex? No. Why would I? Exactly, but for a human there are a lot of reasons why he'd say no or have it said to you. Role-playing is often about risky behavior or danger, and I get plenty of that on the job. Plus, I find it difficult and counterproductive to discourage behavior I enjoy. I'm starting to see why it was impossible to negotiate a relationship with you. Do you want me to do that, and you're not telling me because... Wait, I've lost track of the concept. Let me start over. You say you didn't know you were attracted to me. Should I have put my hands on you? Because you were human? That's a huge question. The uncomfortable answer is probably yes, but not just because I'm human. Because I'm me. I told you back on the Citadel, when you called me stupid, that I liked sex, but I had fewer opportunities, and it would probably be a reporter. That was entirely honest. I used to have what would probably be more of a Turian style of sex. I had good relationships, but I had my job, and that was my focus. I'd form friendships and bond with people, but we all knew that we could be redeployed at any time. So although I'm romantic, I am also deeply pragmatic. I had sex with friends. I had to be friends first. I'd have sex, it was fun, we'd all move on. No attachments other than friendship and, hey, if we're in the same bunk again someday. We'd hang out. I had the good luck to choose people who were lacking in crazy. Great sex, fun sex. Even if we stopped having sex for some reason or another, we'd still be friends. It was special, in its own way. Intimate, something we all needed, something we could do for each other. Clean. And then the Skillian Blitz happened. I became famous. I never wanted that. I really just wanted to be a soldier, do some good. Some of the men I had been involved with died. Some of the rest, and new people I met, they couldn't see me as me. I always had a higher rank, I had a lot of medals, I had a legend that I saw in their eyes. I didn't see me anymore in the way they saw me. I didn't see that they saw me at all. Caden is an example of that, someone who worships me for being a legend and then is disappointed when I'm human. You saw how that worked. Well, how that works. I'm pretty good at reading people. Had to be. I grew up on Earth, on the streets, never had a family, but got good at making families of my own. It was simple. Get food, get water, get shelter, maybe get a laugh. Eventually I spent a lot of time in libraries. It was quiet, and all that information just waiting. I learned a lot about history. I was quick, I was smart, and I avoided being used. I had some good friends, also special in its own way, intimate, something we all needed, something we could do for each other. Read each other's stories, sing a song, keep someone warm. Scam a waffle from the restaurant where the chef liked food anthropology and an appreciative audience. I couldn't always go see a new show or get a new book or new clothes, but at the library, I could learn all about what was old, what was free, what was so incredibly cool about being human. Some of the librarians noticed me. I was their mascot there for a while. There was a lot of horrible stuff on the streets and in the history I read in the library, but there was a lot of good, also, down near where humans were at their basics. Food, shelter, love. Not sex, love. Water. The value of clean water becomes profound. Watch someone give up half their meal when they're starving. Give up half of your meal for someone else and see their eyes. There's a lot of good in people. Yeah, someone might be willing to kill me for that meal, but that was because they were likely starving, driven feral by circumstance. I could forgive the people driven to those extremes. Sometimes I didn't have the ability to forgive someone, and I'd have to hurt them if I couldn't get away or make them go away. Even untrained biotics potential is very useful in a survival sense. I wasn't a pacifist. I did more damage than was done to me, if it was necessary. I was an excellent thief, just really good at it, obnoxiously good at it. Good at lying, good at manipulating, good at getting what I wanted, and finding out what other people wanted and getting it for them. I joined the military to get off the street and be a part of history. The military promised to train me on biotics, which I really wanted. I wanted to be one of the people that were in the books, that were gone and dead, but they did something with themselves. I wasn't interested in being a hero, just being a person. Distinction really fucked that up for me and screwed with my head for a good long while. I had to figure it all out again. Now that I had rank, I was counted among the ambitious with the self-involved, and it was assumed that I was ambitious and self-involved. There wasn't much about generosity, about people at their basic needs anymore. I saw that it was an opportunity to take a spot that might otherwise be occupied by a real asshole, though, and I knew that real leadership wasn't just individual privilege. I was needed, so I took it and ran with it. The cost was giving up sex. I paid it. I wouldn't be used, and that's what it came down to. There was always some level of trophy in someone else's eyes. Sex wasn't a need anymore. It wasn't clean. It was a score. There was nobody I wanted to score, so I dropped the concept and gave up on the idea. I couldn't just become cold, though, because that has its own dangers. Then I wouldn't just be a trophy, but I'd be unattainable, and that made people try even harder. It was more of a mess. Someone could assume I was frigid and just hadn't met the right lover. No, I needed to be casual, let people know I was entirely unavailable, not because I wasn't interested in sex, but because I had it covered, and they wouldn't know how. They didn't need to know how. I let the aura of superiority work for me instead of against me. So no personal need of my own ever made it out into the world. I stuck with the basics: water, food, shelter, love. I had them, and I could get them for others. I loved my teammates, I just didn't love my teammates. There are regs about it that made it easy for me to keep it all in line. After a while, it just became habit, a new normal, part of my job. The Skillian Blitz was 9 years ago, Venri. Yeah, well, 2 of those years don't count, do they? You adapted to my conversational style of sex being out in the open as a subject, but hidden as a practice. Ironic in its way. Elegant. My talent for bullshit finally dumping me on my justifying ass. You were the embodiment of what I had pretended to be. Someone who could manage a sex life amid the insanity. Seeing you with all those women at the reception. That hurt. The only real point in my favor amid all that denial and stupidity was that I really did think you'd have a shot at being happy, that you were happy, and that I could take comfort in the sense that someone had their shit together, even if it wasn't me. It was still my job, getting people the basics, even ones I couldn't have anymore. So getting to know that I wanted you took lots of layers of excavating bullshit I'd piled on top of myself. I didn't know I wanted you for a long time. I never looked at you and put myself in the picture. I knew I respected you, depended on you, dragged you with me everywhere, and then I needed you, loved you, but I didn't know I wanted you because I couldn't get anywhere near that. I can read humans, but I couldn't read you. I just thought you were the coolest thing ever, and entirely out of my reach. I wanted you alive. I wanted you happy. I had no real idea of how Turian relationships happened. So, if you'd put your hands on me then, I wouldn't have said stop. I see that would have been very un-Turian. I told you I wasn't a very good Turian. Never doubt it, Venri. I would have put my hands on you had I known, and I was trying to figure out how to keep you alive so I could put my hands on you later. I'm smart. I would have figured it out. I am so happy to hear that. Anyway, long story, back to the original question. Safe word. If I say Krant in the middle of sex, try to take it easy on me. He laughed, stood up, put her on her feet, and started handing her bits of her armor to put back on. Noted. Me fainting. Is that going to happen every time? I'm going to start developing performance anxiety. I'm not an expert. I'm hoping that we get used to each other. We just have to keep at it. Lots of practice. Morden even said so. If that doesn't work, don't worry. Your performance will never be an issue. I'm up for that. We're going to have to become experts. If I faint, don't feel bad. If you kill me, though, yeah, that's bad. They made their way back to Morden, who was still reviewing the data. She let Morden know it was time to go, and he reluctantly turned back to them and started to follow them out. Garrus walked behind him and waited. When Morden lifted his Omni-tool to scan her, he said, "Morden, if that Omni-tool comes anywhere near her, I'm going to break your arm and twist it off." "I won't stop him." "Understood."